Good morning. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. Charlie, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. Public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, let's move on to item 3, and that is approved minutes. We have 3.1, which are the August 19th, 2019 regular meeting minutes. Does anybody have anything?
I do, just a small thing on page 3, under 4.2, it is the motion nearest the end of the page, it's just a typo. Fund balance reserve for personnel and committee fund balance, I think should be committed. Committed fund balance.
Good. I had one on page 2, 4.1, second to last sentence. They are ending the year with a 1.8 million surplus at this time. I think Mary Jane would have said estimated, or approximately $1.8 million.
Definitely estimated.
All right. That's it for me. Anybody else?
I didn't have any corrections.
All right. Is there a motion to approve as amended?
So moved. Second.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 4, Library Director Rob McCool. Come on up. And this is 4.1, consider and take possible action on request to waive section 2.14-2A of the Guilford Town Code to allow the serving of beer sample tastings during a library program. Rob, want to give us a little background?
Loretta Lyons did book the program, but I would say there is a precedent. We've done this before 3 years ago. It was very successful. There was no issues whatsoever. For this one program, we have a little more of a formal sign-up procedure. Usually we just take sign-ups just for the sake of knowing how many people are coming so we can set up seats. And this one, we actually check the people that are coming in.
Okay.
There'll be 2 of us working, Loretta and myself will both be working. I have about 25 years in the restaurant business where I've done all these things many, many times. And every time I look out in our crowd of adult services, as much as I would love to see like a 20-something where I might even have to card them, I'd be surprised if there's anyone under 50. So Loretta can go to the specifics of the program, but I think in terms of just the functionality of it, we've got this. We've done this before.
Great. And the program itself, is this a fundraiser?
No.
What is it? What's the program?
It's going to be led by a Guilford resident, Phil Markowski, and
Okay.
he is the brewmaster at Two Roads.
Okay.
And it's really just a kind of a program about learning how beer is made
Okay.
and the impact of like U.S. craft beers internationally, the
okay.
sampling, just kind of riding the wave of interest in craft beers. He's a very successful brewmaster and just donating his time for the program.
Great.
And it's very small serving sizes.
Yeah, just a taste.
It's just an event, a library event, it's not a...
Not a fundraiser?
No.
Yeah.
Author event.
It's a program.
Okay.
It happens to be about beer, so.
It's just one of the many thousands of programs that the
Yeah.
library offers, but it needs a little special dispensation.
Wonderful. Would anyone like to make the motion?
I would love to make it.
Then is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. What's that date?
October 15th, Tuesday.
Very good. Sounds great.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't even like beer, but it's a good program.
Yet another reason to go to the library.
That's right.
Item 5, Park and Rec Director Rick Maynard, 5.1, discuss and take possible action to award bid number 2-1920 Elizabeth Adams Athletic Fields Irrigation System.
Good morning.
Rick, good morning, how are you?
Good, thank you. So, our plan and desire is to irrigate the Adams Little League fields. We have, infield is irrigated, but we want to irrigate the outfields, and then run a main line to the baseball field. And alternate 1 is to irrigate the baseball field, alternate 2, the soccer field. Kind of doesn't make sense for us to really just do the baseball field, because the baseball outfield, half of that is a soccer field. So if we stopped there, we'd have half the field irrigated, half not. And so with the field committee and Parks and Rec Commission, we decided, well, let's do all of it. It's all been designed and planned by Mike Ott, our engineer for the project. And so the base bid, I think I sent this to you, sorry, I don't have my glasses on me, but $59,965. Thanks. Alternate one is $14,260, and alternate two, $9,495. Total is $83,720. And then the source for the funding, we have $50,000 in the budget.
Right.
When we did the budget, the original plan was just doing the Little League fields.
Right.
Yep.
And we decided, let's do it all. I mean, we're there. And Little League is committed to contributing $5,000 to the project. And then our program account, the money that's in there is when we collected fees for use of the fields. It was for going back into the fields.
Okay.
Like Rush Soccer and different groups have paid, or tournaments, Soccer Fest, groups like that, when they pay to use the fields,
Right.
it's been set aside to go back into the fields.
Wonderful.
And so that's where it would come from, and that's where the total would be for the $83,720.
Wonderful.
And Rick, two things there. You say the Little League is committed to providing $5,000.
Right.
They have that money available now, or they're going to do
They
fundraising
have
for
it
future?
available.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are these fields irrigated or watered now, if they are, in fact,
They're
watered now?
not, just the infield of the two Little League fields are irrigated, that's it.
So nobody goes out and does it manually?
No, no irrigation on the rest of it. And, Little League used to end of June. Now it goes into
Really?
the tournaments into August, and, I've always said that when we get to August, that sometimes those outfields look like shredded wheat. They're just so dried out, and they're still playing on them actively. And now they go, actually into October, their season. And probably that soccer field it's one of the lowest quality fields in town right now. It gets beat up. It's used all the time. It's a classroom for phys ed classes. There's just somebody on it almost all the time. But we've worked the schedule out with the school and with Jake Jarvis so that the project would start September 30th on the two Little League fields. Little League has agreed not to use those fields for the fall. Or if they do, they only use them in September, and they're going to stay off them for the rest of the fall. And then Jake's request was not to start the soccer field until around October 23rd is his last game there. So we have it scheduled out that we'll start September 30th, Little League field, do the main trunk line, which is off the soccer field, adjacent to the school, to the baseball field, and then start on that, and that'll be around third week of October. So it works out great with the school schedule.
What about the cost of water in the future, Rick? Who will bear that cost, the town?
Well, traditionally, it's been the Board of Ed, because it's a Board of Ed field, it benefits them, it's, it's their phys ed field, they use that, well, it's for the soccer team as well as the baseball fields used for the school baseball team.
What's the general cost for maintenance of these sprinkling systems once they're installed?
Trying to think what we have, I think I'm gonna guess on this, Charlie, I think in our budget for all irrigation maintenance, I'm gonna say somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000, but that's every field in town that we maintain.
Every year?
Yeah.
That's what's budgeted, we don't always spend all of it.
Yeah.
But that's what's budgeted, you don't know, heads start breaking, or you get a leak or something, and you have to repair them. Controllers, we had this year, I don't know what it is with lightning strikes, I think we lost 2 controllers this year.
Yeah.
Cox and, I think either the high school or Bittner, and lightning just knocks them out.
Yeah, Rick, just to qualify Charlie's question, we talk about maintenance, that's replacement of parts, et cetera. Our guys, flush the systems, bring them up and bring them down.
We do that. We do contract some of the stuff out to Winterberry, actually. They've been our contractor for, I'm going to guess, 12 or 15 years. Some stuff is beyond what we can do, like put in new valve boxes or things like that happen periodically. But we do most of the winterization. We may have them help with some of it.
Okay.
A lot of it depends if we just run out of time or guys can't get to it, we just contract it out.
Gotcha.
But we can do a lot of that.
But the general cost is, I'd say 10 to 15,000 for all of the
That's,
irrigation.
it's something, I believe that's what's in the budget, for irrigation repairs.
And this won't overly affect that?
No.
It's not gonna double it or anything?
No, well, hopefully this will be good for 5, 6, 7, 8 years at least, where we wouldn't have to do anything. You know, again,
Well,
occasionally
you
it has.
gotta, you know, to Matt's point, you gotta do the annual maintenance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything further? Is there a motion to approve awarding the contract to Winterberry for the irrigation at Adams Fields in the amount of $83,720?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Item 6, Green Committee, Jerry Silbert, come on up to the hot seat. 6.1, consider and take possible action on policy regarding the placement of privately donated monuments, markers, plaques, benches, and memorials on the town green as recommended by the Green Committee. Just as a way of background, this issue came to the forefront recently because we had a request to put an additional plaque by the World War I Memorial recognizing the 100-year anniversary of the Darrow Rebazzini, do I have that right? I think so. American Legion Post here in town. Jerry, the floor's all yours.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Jerry Silbert. I'm 155 White Birch Drive, and I'm chairman of the Guilford Green Committee. And this issue came up not just from the American Legion Post, but also because a number of requests were made through the Guilford Green Committee for a memorial plaque to memorialize the loved one or a friend on the green in a bench or on a brick and so forth. We've had a number of those before, and these were started to come in. You know, we had 3 or 4 of them. And we started to say, do we really want the green to sort of be like a memorial park with a lot of, you know, plaques memorializing people? Especially considering the fact that there are other places in Guilford where people can do that. You know, the library has a path with bricks, have some of which are memorial bricks. Rick Maynard mentioned that, you know, they can put memorial benches in parks, and sometimes they have a tree planted, but they don't have a plaque on it, but they have a tree planted for that. So we wanted to consider whether this was appropriate for the green. So I found a similar kind of ruling about memorials in the Salt Lake City parks had that. So I copied that down and we looked at it. And then I sent it to Matt and Pam Millman. And Pam revised it, I think, in a much better way, made it more succinct.
Than either one of us could have done.
Not quite as detailed as it was in the Salt Lake City one. And it mentioned specifically that the memorials on the green should be of local or national historic significance rather than memorializing an individual. And I don't know if you have a copy of this,
We
but
do.
I made some copies.
We do. We're
You
good.
do? Okay, fine. So, I won't bother to read the whole thing since
Thank
you
you.
have it already, but basically it creates a procedure, as I said, just for historic memorials of local or national significance, and outlines exactly how that should go, and the Guilford Green Committee will have a form, and people will fill it out, and it specifies in detail what the obligations of the town are and the obligations of the individual are. So we thought that that was appropriate for the Guilford Green at this point.
Charlie?
I think we understand, but maybe for the audience or the camera, you might give a couple of examples of donations, memorials, whatever the word is, of that would be acceptable and that would not be acceptable. I mean, it seems pretty common sense to me, but if you had a general feel of what the committee's thinking is at this point.
Right. Well, the major point is on page 2, Part 3.2, donations for the town green will be considered for placement if they commemorate historical places or historical events of national or local significance. So that, you know, those are the majority of the monuments on the green now, you know. And it specifically does not mention personal memorials. This is of historical or national, local significance. So that deals with the problem of having multiple requests, memorials. It's always a difficult decision to make, you know, when it comes to having personal memorials on the green, because we sympathize with the people.
Well,
and
my
the-
struggle with that is most of the, excuse me, but I mean, most of the memorials now, you know, they're major events, wars and
Correct.
and that type of thing, but someone could come forward with a national event or a national decision that, you know, they promote for whatever reason, and it could be something of significance. I mean, what, you know,
That's correct.
9/11, some court case.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it could still be a national event, and that would still, even if it was a national event, it would still have to come through a Board of Selectmen, a Green Committee.
Correct.
And so that it wouldn't be just one person promoting something that's important to them. It'd have to be something that's important enough to the town, but it sounds like it could be acceptable.
It could be, and it's up to the selectmen to decide. The Guilford Green Committee has the duty of making the form, seeing what the form says, and making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. But the Board of Selectmen have the ultimate authority to make that choice.
It just, I have, you know, Pam is probably the expert at the legalese and everything. It just, you know, the word significance means different things to different people
Right,
And at different times.
at different
Yeah.
times.
right. Well, that's always the case.
Yeah, and that's right. And there's no better word, and, you know, we could, you know, spend the rest of the year discussing it.
Let's get our thesaurus out and figure
Yeah,
out which
yeah.
word we
No, I
fit.
mean, this is a step in it. It makes sense. It certainly sends a message regarding individual memorials and that type of thing. So-
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's entirely appropriate to have difference of opinions, you know, that's,
Oh, that's very real.
And I think it
Situation's
comes,
different.
as Jerry said, it's incumbent upon this board to determine what is significant.
This and future boards.
Yeah, this and.
Right.
At least you have some framework here.
Right.
This is, you know, this certainly addresses the particular issue that you face this year.
Exactly.
Yep. I totally agree with what you're trying to accomplish. It really makes sense. At a recent meeting, we talked about where all these policies and guidelines will reside, so that people can go and find out what the expectations are before they, you know, start the process.
right.
Will there be something on your,
Well, the ultimate, you know, the first step that they will take is there'll be a form, and they would get that from the Guilford Green Committee. So if they go to the office here and they, you know, they want a request for something like that, they'll be referred with the form to the Guilford Green Committee. We'll take a look at it. We'll make our recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and that's how the process will go.
Right. Tracy, is this posted somewhere? Or it already, it will be, it will be.
Okay.
Good.
great.
But to Sue's point, I think the form should have, even if it's online, even if it's available,
policy.
so you gotta literally make life super easy.
Yeah, part of
The
the
form
form
on
should
top
be the
of it.
policy that should be followed.
I had one question.
Certainly.
Yes.
I had one other question, right under the section you read, and thanks for that, the 3.3. So, subject to existing laws and regulations, the BOS may consider requests to place a small donor recognition plaque on donations.
Right.
So, two things. One's a super quibble, sorry, but I mean, and it may say it somewhere else, but I mean, it seems to me, right in that section, it should be sort of like, in its sole discretion, this body has the authority to decide whether a plaque goes on or not. I mean, come back into the history of things. You don't
Ghost
want,
of lights on the green.
you don't want commercial, I think we've kind of been through the bill on that topic. You wouldn't necessarily want commercial usages, and it's up to this board and future boards to decide under what settings commercial is.
Right.
And so, the memorials are one step, and then sort of the recognition plaques are the second
Right.
piece
Right.
of the puzzle.
Right.
So up to this point, there has been no policy. This is a new proposal to try and create some order on this issue.
Correct.
Wonderful, thanks for all this effort.
Is this including, like, I haven't seen very many new ones, but there were some plaques in sidewalks. This would include that, right?
Yeah, whatever can be considered
Yeah.
a plaque or memorial, whether it's in a monument or on a plaque on the sidewalk. I mean, the Guilford Green Committee, for example, is wanting to put a little plaque on a well, on an old well on the green, and a millstone and so forth, and it'll be about a foot long and so forth, just for historical significance, so something like that.
Also on page 2 in the 3 points, on 3.7, where it says the board reserves the right to reject any donation in its sole discretion and to relocate donation to another location on the town green at any time if deemed to be in the best interest of the town. I wonder, I think this would be very rare, but I wonder if we should put another phrase in there that says to relocate to another place in town. I mean, if there was some reason to take it green entirely and relocate it to some other spot. It probably wouldn't happen, but I wonder, since we're going through this and looking at all different options, I don't know.
The only point I would raise on that is there are particular governing agencies for particular areas. So you're the governing agency for things on the green. It would
But
be
that-
subject to the governing agency who's responsible for
Right.
parks. So it's just an overlap there.
We could write that in. I think it's a good idea to make it broader.
I mean, what you're saying is we could take it off the green, but then we'd have to be sure that where we thought we would put it
Correct.
would
Yeah.
be appropriate.
Correct.
And we can incorporate
So
that.
that the other agency.
I mean, I don't, we're trying to consider all the issues here, and I doubt it's what, I'm not saying this because I'm advocating taking things off the green, but you never know. I mean,
How
just
many,
never know.
how many are on the green today?
Memorials?
Plaques, memorials, whatever.
Well, as you see, there's memorials to Civil War, the First World War, the Second World War, the Vietnam War.
There's
As
stuff
well
on the
as-
sidewalks that's individuals
Yeah,
right
as well
now,
as there are
yeah.
individual plaques
Yeah.
at the moment, sometimes on
How many,
benches, sometimes on
do you have a
bricks.
number? Be interesting to know the number and have that recorded someplace so that, 350 years from now, that doubles, what would the green look like?
Yeah, I can't tell you a number offhand, so this is just like a rough guess, but I would say somewhere between 7 or 8.
Oh, there,
More than that.
oh,
And
you-
I-
there's-
I'm
I
talking
bet
about
you-
individual.
No, I'm talking
Individual names.
total,
I mean,
hundreds of
right
monuments.
outside here is the plaque, the Abraham Baldwin brass plaque, and
And
this
the
is the history of
sidewalk,
the
I mean,
town.
I think there's 10 on different sidewalks. I remember one time we had to go record them.
So I can't give you a precise.
That'd be an interesting number to know.
So just, I could actually probably come back to you with that information, because part of this process, I took photos of all the monuments and sent it to the insurance company, our insurance company, just to make sure how they're handled currently, whether they're insured, what would happen if they were destroyed. So I've got those numbers, and
We have to insure them, and I think about that, that's something I never would have thought of.
they are covered.
While we're talking about that 3.7, it also brings to mind, is there anything that allows us to just flat out remove it and discard a donation, a monument?
Existing.
instance, let's take a look at what's happened throughout the country with some of the
changes.
the Confederate statues which have been removed permanently. Does this give us the authority to do that as well? Since we're the governing agency for the green, I think it's inherent that we have the ability to determine what stays there. However, I'm going to defer to the attorney because she tells me just not play an attorney
Well,
on
I think if
TV.
we were to go that direction, which I think, unfortunately, maybe we have to, it's a different world we live in. But that, to me, then we really ought to have a list of existing. I mean, because there's, might be some there that we're not aware of, could be popping up eventually.
Agreed.
It's an inventory, I mean, it's part of what.
It says in part 5.2, the town's duty to maintain the donation shall be limited to the useful life of the donation, after which the town in its discretion may remove the donation.
Yeah, but those are two different.
That's for a very specific
Scenarios,
purpose,
yeah.
as opposed to we find it, or some board finds it politically insensitive to keep a monument like that still on the green.
So maybe, a counter consideration is, the donor is put an expense, it's their expense with an expectation. So it'd be something for you to consider. I mean, if you change your mind after they've made that expense and and decide to remove it, let's, for argument's sake, 2 years, and it had a useful life of 25,
Right.
is that
Yeah, but I don't think Matt's strictly talking about a maintenance or useful life
understood?
situation.
Understood, I know. But I'm just saying, from a donor's perspective, it's interesting to consider that.
Nothing's easy.
Yeah.
I think it'd be worth adding that line in, in the world that we live in today. I mean,
Yeah, can we add
It's a
something?
business decision.
Yeah, let's go back and add something relative to the board's ability to remove entirely. Right? And did is it also worth putting something that we could relocate it? That really covers it, right?
Relocated to another approved location.
Yeah.
recommend.
Can we roll that
We
in
can certainly
together?
do both those things.
Great,
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
great. Anything else?
No, but we better move on.
Yeah,
Before we take it
before we
down.
find something else, that's
Well,
right.
like all policies, this is the first time we're looking at it. We could look at it once a year, or maybe that's too frequent, but I mean, maybe once every 2 years and make sure that we're happy with what's in it, because we can change it from time to time, right? It's a
Absolutely.
living
It's a
document.
policy.
Anytime.
It is a living document. Jerry, thank you very much for
Sure.
bringing this to our
Yes,
attention.
So I
Any-
take it
any
you're not
final
gonna
com-
vote on it now
Not today.
because you're gonna do
We're
the
gonna add
revisions,
that,
so
right.
Revise.
we'll table that.
And you're certainly welcome to come back when we vote on it again, however, I think, we'll share it with you and you can make that determination
Yeah, I think
as
that's
to whether,
fine.
if you trust us.
Right,
Right.
right.
All right, so is there a motion to table this, and while we await some updated language?
So move.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Jerry, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
very
efforts.
much.
And your committee, too.
Yep.
Just to show you, there's always another issue.
Exactly. Item 7, Director of Human Resources, Mitch Goldblatt. 7.1 is to consider and take possible action on the rules and regulations governing the Town of Guilford Police Retirement Fund amended and restated as of July 1, 2014, as recommended by the Pension Committee. Mitch, you want to talk a little bit about the background on this and
Yep, this is basically.
why we're doing it?
What it says is a restatement of the police pension, the police retirement fund, as it's formally called. There were a number of amendments to this, as there were to the town pension plan, which you adopted a restatement a few years back. We then went to work on the police pension in the same manner. In the meantime, the police negotiated a few more contracts, and things got waylaid and delayed somewhat. We finally have it put together when the a draft copy came out. There was some concern of the police union that it actually did restate everything. So we had a couple meetings with the police union who are on board and have resolved any differences they had with some of the language. And basically, there's nothing new that hasn't already been approved by this board, either in a previous amendment or the police contract. Just makes it into a much cleaner document. It went through the pension committee. They looked at that and gave their approval on August 21st, recommending it to this board, who has the authority to give the final approval. And from that board, we found a couple of stray dashes in there, which have been removed for the final version, which you will have to sign if you approve this. So that's ready to go, and hopefully put this one to bed.
All right, let me just confirm a couple of
Yep.
things. You talked about amendments and/or changes to the plan. Those are amendments or changes that result from contract negotiations. Is that correct?
Yeah, the amendments were both from contract negotiations as well as cost of living adjustments from way back
Okay.
that had to be approved by amendment.
Right.
Those just, you had the plan that was approved a number of years ago with several amendments that, took place every couple of years. Then we had a couple of more police contracts, which made some other changes to the plan. Everything's been followed, even though this has not been updated per se. We have not violated any of the provisions of the police contracts as we've gone through. They've increased their contributions, they've gotten their pensions as stated, but this just makes it a much cleaner document, puts it all together. From what's been already approved.
Also, who prepares this document? Who does a review of the amendments and et cetera?
It was prepared jointly by, and I say jointly, my staff, as well as then went through our actuary, as well as our town labor council. They did a lot of back and forth. Our town labor council sent it off to a pension expert, came back, and we have a new labor council who's also reviewed it, and his firm, as well as the police union. So we've got everybody on board at this point. It's been looked at by many, many eyes.
Mitch, tell me about the, in 1.5, base compensation. It looks like there's a highlighted change. Is it a change? It says plus up to, so base compensation base means the employee's average annual straight line earnings plus up to 12 hours per week of police overtime earnings. Is that overtime earnings a change, or was that in the existing?
That's been there for long, long time.
So why is it
Yeah.
highlighted?
Because when we went through this, things changed from different sections to make it read better. We also pulled
Okay.
some things that might have actually been in an amendment from way back that had to now be pulled into the actual document.
So that contract, because that would be a negotiated item, right?
Right.
And that has been in place for
Well, it says right there, since if I'm looking at the right spot,
1.5.
1.5. Yeah, 1.5. And then it goes on. Compensation. And then you read up further, it says as it's the plan year be after 2001.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding that it's not an ad.
Let me ask-
No,
It's not an ad. This
No.
was negotiated
Let me
back.
ask that
No, it's not an ad. This goes way, way back.
With that, but I'm
The
just trying
way
to
the
make sure we
police
understand
pension's
that.
been determined for
Let me
quite
ask
some time.
that question in another way then. In the red line version, as, I've scrolled a couple of times now, but I have not read the entire thing word for word. But it seems like there's a lot of formatting and that kind of thing. Are there any substantial changes that, I don't see them appearing in this red line?
No, the substantial changes that look like they may be substantial are only
Are
things that have been
existing.
from existing contracts.
So we're not voting on any changes
Nope.
to anything, we're just simply cleaning up format and that type of thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
This is kind of in the
that's
same
what-
frame that we're looking at all those zoning regulations and everything, I
Yeah.
think, where we're trying to
Well, I
make it
just
a
want to
little-
double check.
Yeah, no,
that
I'm just
we're
trying to be
not,
clear too, yeah.
Approving any
Yeah.
changes,
no
we're
change
just
to-
cleaning
when you-
up the mechanics.
Charles, when you vote on this today, there's nothing that'll change to the police union they haven't already had already. and you
That's
voted
what
on
I
it.
understood, I
Yeah.
just wanted you to say it.
Yep, it is.
Mitch, can you point out anything like that, that is a substantial difference in the document, even though it's not a change in the way anything is being done?
Well, sure, the contributions that are made by the police officers are now locked in through the 2020 contract. That is now in the document, as well as their, how their pension is determined is also locked in. It also freezes out the plan. As I think you all know, this plan is grandfathered as of July 1, 2014. Any new police officers that are hired after that time have not been in this plan. They're all in a defined contribution plan as opposed to this defined benefit plan.
Okay, good.
So those are the major
Big things.
things that have been
Thank you.
taken care of with this, yeah.
Right, right. And thanks for that reminder. And you told us this during budget season, because I think I asked exactly the same question, but just approximately how many new employees now are under the new defined contribution
We are
plan?
very close to 50/50 at this point. There's the one or two more that are still in the defined benefit plan as opposed to defined contribution. We have a new hire on today that I'll be going through orientation with this afternoon. So we're just about there at 50/50.
And so all new hires, regardless of if they're lateral or right out of the
That is absolutely correct.
academy.
Yes. In fact, this hire today is lateral, and that person will be on the defined contribution plan.
Great, Mitch, thanks.
Yep.
Anything further? Is there a motion to approve the rules and regulations governing the Town of Guilford Police Retirement Fund amended and restated as of July 1st, 2014?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 7.2, discuss and take possible action on the First Amendment of the Town of Guilford Employees Pension Plan effective July 1, 2015, as recommended by the Pension Committee. Mitch?
Okay, so going back, as I said, the town pension plan was already restated back in 2013. And now we're at the point of putting in amendments to that plan. Now, the amendments are behind because this police retirement plan, which you just approved, has taken a long time to get through. And any amendments to the town plan, we're following behind that with everybody, the same group of people looking at amendments and going through. The first amendment to the town plan is affecting just the firefighters based on their contract, which you have already approved. There will be other amendments forthcoming. Specifically, we know for the dispatchers, and other groups that have concluded contracts after that date. This is the first one. This particular amendment was forwarded off to the fire union, just to make sure everything that was in the amendment agreed with what was in their contract, so we didn't have any issues. They have reviewed it. They have reviewed it with their counsel. It's reviewed by our counsel. Everyone agrees this is consistent with the latest contract with the firefighters. And so this just updates that for you, and therefore it has to be, to make it official in the pension plan, you have the amendment before you.
Mitch, the reason we're going back to 215, because that was the contract that was most recently negotiated?
It was the 215, but there was no changes since then. So, the last firefighter's contract did not change anything further with with regard to pension.
Pension,
Yeah.
okay.
So this would make everything current for the firefighters.
Got it.
And the changes you see there are changes that you've already approved when you approved the last two, actually firefighter contracts, because it's already embedded in those contracts.
Good. Any other questions on this one?
Motion, I'll move it.
In a second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Mitch, before you go, we've talked about this offline, particularly as it talks about going back and restating to 5 years ago, et cetera. The opportunity in front of us is to close that window.
Yep.
Now, how do we effectively do that? You know, not wait so long between periods of time where we're updating the documents?
Well, we already have a long period of time between the last couple documents because this one has been approved, and right following that, we're still working on, because there's been some retirements in both our actuary and our labor council. We are now have a plan put together to get those other amendments put forward to you know, in the near future. And then following that, any other changes to any contracts we'll be looking at more recently and post haste after they're concluded. But, you know, I want to let you know there will be some others following this that will also have some long delays since they're approved contracts. But once again, nothing, even though the pension plan is being updated, amended, everything that you approved with the contracts has been in effect since those contracts were approved, such as increased contributions by the employees and any changes to the pension calculations.
Gotcha. Mitch, as we've closed out the pension plan to new hires, what's the likelihood of, in the next year, we have 5 of our 6 unions that we're gonna enter into negotiations with? What is what kind of things would we anticipate seeing in terms of changes to a pension that is already closed?
It depends on whether the negotiations on either side feel that there's anything that needs to be addressed or wants to be addressed. Obviously, you know, being very honest with you, all the unions are always pushing for additional cost of living adjustments that have not been approved since 2008 by this board. That seems to be something that seems to always be on the table as a discussion. Anything else is going to depend on what this board, and specifically you, Matt, want to put forward towards the unions, if you feel there's any changes necessary, and then those members, if they feel they're looking for any enhancements on their end. I think that based on the fact that the number of individuals who are on a defined benefit pension program in the active employees continues to diminish, and it will continue to diminish. I think we've got a pretty solid pension plan for those individuals, so I'm not anticipating any major changes, but I can hardly predict what happens in negotiations from either side sometimes. Charles, you've been with me on those many times. We see some surprises at times. So it's hard to say, but obviously this board will be fully apprised by any changes, and you have the ability to vote. When you vote on a contract and a collective bargaining agreement, any changes will be voted on by this board.
Yeah, and that'll probably close down, you know, the timing where the paperwork catches up to.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
This is a substantial cleanup after substantial changes across many bargaining units.
Good. Anything further? Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you.
Item 8, consider and take possible action on application for a variance from the noise control ordinance from the Guilford Agricultural Society for the Guilford Fair taking place September 20th to 22nd, 2019. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
I dare say we have to approve this, huh? What do you
It's
think?
the fair.
It's the fair. Anything, any comments or questions?
Well, it just, there's a notation of the alcohol being served, but they have a sort of a detailed explanation. It's
Yeah.
gonna be run by Thimble Island. And it's in an enclosed area next to the police command posts. So Thimble, they really went to some trouble here to make sure they touched all the issues we've always raised. Thimble Island will have their own certified servers, limit the number of beers available. So, I mean, listen, some of these craft breweries in the area are significant businesses, and, you know, it's nice to support them, and they're addressing the concerns, I think.
And it's only in the context of noise,
Right.
right?
I know, they were
Noise
almost adding
application,
that,
so-
just as an, oh,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
As
it's
it relates
interesting.
to the noise
Noise,
issue.
yes.
So
Yes.
they're, I'm just giving them props for providing a thorough application to us.
Good. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, refuses, hearing none, motion carries. Item 9, request for the use of town property. Charlie, you want to make a motion here?
Yeah, let's institute the Gary Amendment or whatever and approve,
9.1 through
approve,
9.5.
yeah, 9.1 through 9.5.
Should we at least mention what they
Yeah,
are?
let's,
for
I
anybody
can
who's
mention
watching?
each name,
Okay.
Parks and Rec, I guess it's Spectacular.
Yeah.
Keeping Society, a beer tasting on the 12th. Christ Episcopal Church, tag sale on the 27th of September. The library, their book sale on September 27th. And the First Congregational Church, the crop walk on October 6th.
These are all just requests for signs.
Yeah, that last
With
one
the
was
exception
use-
of the use of the green on
For
the
the
first one.
crab walk.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
thank you, Charlie. I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 10, committee reports. Lou?
We'll see everybody Thursday night.
Thursday
7:30.
evening,
Thanks.
and for those in the viewing audience, Thursday night's meeting is to review the changes to the building fee ordinance. And we will be conducting a public hearing and then acting on that ordinance change that evening, so,
At the community center.
at the community center.
Will there be a presentation of what the changes are too, or really just feedback from the public?
Yeah.
It will.
Little summary.
Kimberly will be here, our new building inspector will be
Okay.
here as well, and she and Lou
Great.
can cover the changes to
Great.
to aid the intent.
It's at the Park and Rec, not here, right?
Yeah,
Community
community center, yeah, at community center, good. All right, Sandy, anything further on?
Well, I can finally, it has already been publicly announced in the papers, but I can say that the Housing for Economic Development Plan Committee formally recommended to the selectmen at the last meeting that we enter contract negotiations with NeighborWorks New Horizons for a small affordable housing unit to be developed, we hope, on part of the Woodruff Rollwood property. So it's just the next step, and there will be many further steps to come, but this is a significant step.
Correspondence, anyone? Old business, I had one piece, and this is just a follow-up. You folks received the email that I sent out related to the concerns we had on the serving of alcohol at the golf course.
Yes.
Was everyone satisfied with the information we got?
Yep.
Before. I'm glad we asked the questions.
Yep.
Definitely.
No, but good,
Yeah.
it was a very good point.
Everybody aware.
Good. Anybody else with old business, new business?
Fair books are available.
There you go. I got
Yeah, you
got
can
one
find them all
downstairs.
Around town.
That's
Good.
right.
You'll
Wow, that's
September
bigger than ever.
20th through 27th.
The advertisers filling that book up. You like that? Public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board? Public forum? Hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none. Motion carries. Thank you. One of the quicker ones.
Yeah.